So yeah, as people come back from lunch, we just wanted to really thank everyone for their contributions today, including the audience. You've come up with really amazing questions, and the discussions have been, just a source of discovery for me, and hopefully for others too. Um, we organised this conference. Maybe we started 2 months ago now, Lee, do you think? Was it 2 months? Something like 2 months ago. And we just decided
Yeah,
yeah.
about yeah.
So we're both students at Warwick, and we wanted to do something to support children. I'm a teacher, and Lee works on children's literature, as she might talk about later. So we just started to reach out to people to see if they would participate in an event like this, and basically everyone said yes. Everyone has volunteered, so it's really wonderful that this has been possible on a budget of zero. We did at the last minute get a bursary from the WRSA at Warwick for £100, which bought us this Zoom account, so that we could host a big call without interruptions. So aside from that, it's all just been out of the goodness of people's hearts. And hopefully new things will come out of this. First of all, collaborations between speakers, that would be wonderful. If we can help facilitate that, great. Also, the whole day is being recorded. So we're hoping to distribute those talks in the future. So yeah, that's sort of a summary of how we got here. Just for 5 minutes or so, I thought I'd give some of my own reflections on the themes of the conference today, and Lee will do the same kind of thing later on in the day. I was really struck by a phrase, I think it was Lucy Glasheen. She mentioned, what do we do with the silence, with the new silence that we're all living with? And there's a particular passage in Wordsworth's Prelude, which I have always wanted to talk about, and it seems appropriate here. It's a passage where, as a child, Wordsworth's describing his experience of being stuck indoors while the storms raged outside. So for most of the Prelude, he's running over the hills and he's going boating in the lakes, but then there's this period where he's stuck indoors. And I thought maybe that we could learn something from this, and it might draw out some themes from the talks we've seen so far and those we're going to hear. So I'll just read a little bit. Eager and never weary, we pursued our home amusements by the warm peat fire at evening, when with pencil and smooth slate in square divisions parcelled out, and all with crosses and with ciphers scribbled o'er, we schemed and puzzled, head opposed to head, in strife too humble to be named in verse. So we have this picture of the evening going slowly with the children gathered around a fire, playing games and puzzling and finding a kind of new intimacy with each other, head opposed to head. And they're in this strife too humble to be named in verse, which is essentially playing games, making up games, a kind of learning that might resonate with our keynote speech and with other speeches we've heard, where play is a part of learning and is something that we might want to acknowledge more, particularly now. And these games for Wordsworth include using cards and making up kind of armies and playing with imaginary armies. And he says these armies are not, as in the world, neglected and ungratefully thrown by, even for the very service they had wrought, but husbanded through many a long campaign. So there's a new kind of loyalty and trust between the children and their imaginary armies that grows out of this play. During the games, the cards that they play with change functions, Wordsworth says. So the 2s and 3s, for example, might become kings and queens, and their fates are altered, he says. So basically, according to the whims of the children and their games, they might say, oh, now that ace can be a 2, that 3 can be a king. And there's a great kind of sense of social mobility, which might also relate to our keynote talk in this passage, right? That when the kids start to make up their own games, um, those players in the games can take on new roles and can expand upon their own potential, and discover new meanings and new ways of perhaps expressing themselves, as Wordsworth does in the poem. Meanwhile, abroad, incessant rain was falling, or the frost raged bitterly, with keen and silent tooth. Sorry for the noise outside, the storm outside. So during this awful weather, there's a new kind of play that's discovered for Wordsworth as a child in this poem, and that we might learn something from. A kind of inventive play which can give the players new senses of themselves, and a new perspective on how the world outside might look when they're able to venture out there again. I think that's sort of enough for now. I just wanted to kind of show some potential ideas that might resonate with the talks we encountered this afternoon. So I'm going to introduce the keynote speaker now.